Hello, everyone. Did you want to do it?
You can do it.
Hello, everyone. And
Welcome
to the SLO City Together
Podcast
with
Luke,
me,
Andrew,
him, he,
and Brent.
Hello.
you.
Myself.
Awesome.
Yep, we're here.
We're here.
Welcome, Andrew.
Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
How are you?
I am excellent this morning.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Happy to be
Good.
here.
Do you want to do like a bio for Andrew this morning for the listener?
I just asked you this, but you've ever been on a podcast before?
I have, I feel like a couple. The one I can remember was a Lake Norman business
Summit
podcast thing where I talked about marketing and things like that.
Cool. Well, how was that? Was it
fun.
like very exciting? Was it long? Was it short?
Very
was it
serious?
15 minutes, 30 minutes?
It was
an hour.
It was down. This guy, his wife was a lawyer.
Okay.
And she was in this really nice building.
Okay.
And she gave him like a little dungeon down in the basement to have a little podcast room.
It's basically what we're in.
And kind of,
It's
yeah.
a glorified dungeon.
It was a lot darker, but it was cool. Yeah. And a friend of mine who's from that area who does marketing, it was a lot of fun, but this is going to be
How many
much
subscribers did that podcast have?
better. I have no idea.
How many do we have? We have no clue.
I don't know.
We really don't know.
We do have a 5-star rating on Spotify.
We do.
Wow.
So if you're listening to this and you like Spotify, go leave us a little.
Is that
5-star
because
rating.
of this podcast or because of the sermon content?
It's a collection. Since they're both, on that feed.
They're both
so,
housed there. We've
So-
talked about pulling it separate.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Separate.
We'll make it happen. I need to look into it.
Okay.
Of what's the best platform for that.
Yeah.
But just note the SLO City Together podcast might be moving.
Might be
to a different,
or it might stay.
different
It
platform.
might both move and stay. We've also talked about that.
Yeah. Just keeping it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to tell you about this podcast.
Okay, please do it.
That's very interesting.
That's what I was going to ask you. What
That's
did you
very
have
cool.
to tell us about this podcast?
That's very interesting.
Well, it's cool because about 4 or 5 months ago, I was on my back porch in North Carolina, like once a week, watching the
hilarious.
podcast because I was interested in the church.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had even applied for the executive pastor role yet.
Yeah.
But I was like very intrigued by you guys and Jordan and learning about the church through the podcast.
Yeah.
So I was I was a fan of the podcast.
It's like little bits of things come through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm here. So
we don't
which
really
is
have a
fun.
direction when we start, but
Yeah, sometimes we do.
well, Luke does.
Very often not. I do. I definitely
You usually
do.
come with content and questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
It
what's
is
nice
weird to me to think that somewhere in North Carolina was a man on a
Yes.
back porch watching it on YouTube,
Yeah.
which is cool.
there could have been multiple. We don't know.
It could have been
But
multiple.
there definitely was one. One confirmed.
Well, yeah.
And now he's
So
here.
you're the new executive pastor at SLO City Church.
Yay.
Woo, yes.
It's been a long process. We
Yeah.
first talked in April around Easter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What did you
Yeah.
guys talk about?
I don't know. We were just like, "What's up, man?"
Nice. Well, Andrew, I thought there was going to be more
I
to
don't
that.
really know what we talked about the first time. I think it was like, "Hey, Andrew." I think Andrew was like, "I'm not really like we're moving to AG because you could tell a little backstory, give a little like maybe overarching life story in 1.5 minutes."
Yeah. The really quick version where my wife and I are from San Jose, California.
Are you a San Jose Sharks fan?
I'm not a huge hockey fan,
Yeah.
but I've been to like
A couple games.
at least a dozen Sharks games because that was the only professional sports in San Jose.
Are you a San Jose State football fan?
I've been to a couple of games,
Okay.
but I went to San
Seems
Jose State.
Did you?
And I never
Went to a game?
Really?
What?
I went to
It's
one
like a
or
D1.
two. I didn't live on campus.
Okay.
I was like the commuter person who took classes
Everybody-
there and then just drove home after.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Oh, here comes the commuter."
Yeah. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't have like that like
Yeah.
on campus experience. So
That's cool. So from San Jose.
yeah. Got married and had our kids there, worked at a church there for a long time. And then we felt the Lord prompt us to move to the other side of the country and
Nineveh.
to Nineveh and to Toccoa, Georgia, which is a awesome little spot.
Yeah.
But we spent 10 years there, but the whole time we were kind of planning / in our hearts, we knew we'd go back to California at some point.
Yeah.
And my Breeny's
colluding
family and everybody are
back
here.
Yeah.
And so that was a topic of conversation for many years, and God's timing and doors opened for us to move back. So I reached out to Brent and said, we really love your church and we're moving to AG. And so here we are.
Yeah. It was kind of cool. It's like, oh man, he's moving regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
In fact, I think I would have just come to SLO City even if I didn't get hired.
If the podcast was anything, the podcast was like, seals the deal, I'm coming.
Yeah.
Who did you like the most? Me, Jordan, or Luke? Probably Jordan.
Jordan, for sure.
Absolutely.
Jordan is the star of the podcast.
He is.
He's great.
Yeah. My favorite part is when I'm watching, I don't watch back the podcast often, but when I do, to watch Jordan, his active listening skills, because he's constantly like, he's like kind of jittery. He's like sitting here like this.
Yeah.
Have you noticed?
I have not, but now I will go back and watch. I mean, I see his little,
watch the facial expression, because you know those reels that like
the reels,
the reels cause.
You got to get into Jordan's facial expressions on the reels for sure. But
it's very animated.
Yeah. Andrew, when we first met on a Sunday morning, that one of the first things you said to me was something about the podcast.
Really?
You're like, I feel like I already know you because of the podcast.
It was the gateway into SLO City Church.
I can't wait for people to recognize us, be like, hey, you're the podcast guys.
Yeah.
Podcast guy.
You're just like out and about in the community.
Yeah.
No longer are you the pastor, you're the podcaster.
No, hey, are you on that podcast? Yeah. It's so revolutionary. It's taking the Laurel Lane Street by storm.
Top 10 in SLO County, allegedly.
Allegedly top 10 in SLO County. Yeah. So more about your background, because I think what I find interesting is that one, I don't know where you want to go with this. You can pick your poison here. One, you started your own business. 2, you have 4 kids.
Yep.
3, your dad helped struggling churches in the midst of scandal, which I find fascinating. We could go 4.
Yeah.
We share an affinity for a sports team.
We do.
And so there's four options that we could go after right now. Yeah. Your choice.
Wow.
Which one do you want to start with?
Choose your own adventure.
I'll just mix. I'll mix two of them. I'll mix 2 of them.
Okay.
Great.
We have 4 kids.
Okay.
Olivia, Jack.
They're fine.
Josiah and Audrey. They're great. The 4 of them plus Breeny and I make 6 of us.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we call ourselves internally the I6.
I6.
And our last name is
to play. It's a dad joke on a dad joke.
Our last name is Isaacs.
Yeah.
Like Isaac with an S. Isaacs. And so
plural but singular.
The Isaacs singular family with an S.
Right?
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, Isaacs in itself is
I too have a last name with a S on the end.
Which doesn't make any sense because you're singular lion.
Yeah, well, so even people, like especially in my old church who had known me my entirety of being there would still call me Luke Lion.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that, Andrew Isaac?
Actually, a lot of people just, Isaacs for some reason sticks more than Andrew, and so they start calling me Isaac.
Oh.
And I'm always like, okay,
close
whatever.
Enough,
close enough.
Not wrong.
I learned that Andrew would like to be called Andrew. Second is Drew. Never is Andy.
Not third.
So I called him Andy on day 1, and I learned. Welcome to the office.
So my
Michael Scotted.
My dad is probably going to watch this. Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. But I just have to tease this because the whole apostrophe thing on the last name with an S at the end.
Yeah.
Really throws everybody for a loop, including people with that last name.
It throws me for a loop. When I'm writing Jesus's disciples, I'm like, do I go S apostrophe S or S apostrophe?
So, for example, we got a gift that was said the Isaacs family.
Yeah.
And an apostrophe was added at the end of it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, yeah, because you wouldn't put the apostrophe between the C and the S. It'd be after. I'm like, it just doesn't need an apostrophe. The Isaacs family with no apostrophe.
Yeah. It's not Isaac's family. It's or Isaac's family.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Can I say something about your kids really quick?
Yeah.
Jenna just read Olivia's book.
Oh, yeah.
Olivia's an author.
She is.
And so coming to a shelf or Amazon near you. Too Far Gone?
We did an initial run. The Things You Forgot.
Too Far Gone
is what it's called. You should read it, Brent.
I know, The Things You Forgot.
Yeah.
Jenna read it in a day and loved it. And
it's like it's a novella. It's not a novel. So it's
what does that mean?
I can't remember the exact thing, but it's like if it's less than 100,
it's like Coachella.
Less than 150 pages or something like that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Right. So yeah,
it was good, cool. And super talented family.
Yeah,
dude. Like we get to have dinner at their house, and your kids are awesome, and it's been cool to get to know them.
Yeah.
So,
the I-6,
Audrey, Josiah, Jack. I'm not gonna confuse them anymore.
Never.
So,
yeah.
Your dad, your dad. What? I'm not gonna spoil it. Where was he originally from, and what happened in his life?
Yeah, my dad
to lead you to San Jose.
Yeah.
My mom and dad were both born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky.
Did you know this?
Well, I knew your dad was. I didn't know your mom was as well.
My mom was kind of the upper echelon Lexington. Her dad was a lawyer. They kind of ran in the wealthy Lexington circle. And my dad was my grandpa was a carpet layer, and they were a very just humble.
Did they know the Kraft family?
Small,
I wonder, Joe and Kelly Kraft.
I don't know.
Or the Train people.
They
Who
could
are those
have.
Guys?
I don't know the Train people.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
There's only. So Louisville is an hour and a half from Lexington.
Yeah.
And I did not just spill
little spillage.
So I'm not necessarily from Lexington, but we share an affinity for the University of Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah. Yes.
My dad went to UK. Cool. My mom went to Mary Baldwin College.
I don't know what that is.
I think it's in Virginia.
Okay.
Okay.
My dad went to UK. Most of my cousins went to UK.
Wow. But when did you move to San Jose as a family?
I was born in San Jose. So my older sister was born in Kentucky.
Okay.
And then she was 1, I think. And then they moved out there to plant a church. So very similar story to you all, which is moving from Kentucky to California to plant a church. My parents just did it 40 years ago.
Wow.
45 years ago.
If it wasn't for Kentucky,
pretty cool.
I'll tell you what. Oh my goodness. It's the promised land. The bluegrass.
Yeah.
Joking. I can't. But, okay. Sorry, I kind of derailed.
It's all good.
Anything else?
Yeah. So, well, I'll fill in the gap. You asked about my dad.
Yeah. Because I thought you worked with him a little bit in that, right?
Yes.
Or you traveled with him, or I thought that was interesting.
So there's a group of churches amazing relational network of churches that's non-denominational called Salt and Light International.
Where'd they get that name?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I think it's the Bible.
Luke, I'm making Luke laugh, which is maybe one of the most when Luke starts to laugh, and I'm like, can I get one more? Can I get one more?
Wow.
Keep it rolling.
So then I'm like, it's kind of like in a dopamine hit over here.
Okay, well, I'm glad I can provide that for you. So, network of churches, Salt and Light.
Yeah, my dad was part of the core leadership of that. Mm-hmm. And so I got to tag along as a Timothy, they would call it.
Yeah.
That's probably from the Bible too.
I think so.
I'm guessing.
I think so.
And I got to know a bunch of the younger generation of leaders from different countries. Got to go to India with my dad. Went to Africa, went to Morocco, which was a lot of fun.
To visit church leaders.
Yeah, that was usually we would have international meetings in different continents of the world so that guys wouldn't have to travel to the same continent every time.
So
it was global.
Let me get this. So your parents are from a high-end community in Lexington, pretty highfalutin, as we would say in Kentucky. And they left that to plant a church in San Jose.
I mean, my mom was. I think my mom left that to marry my dad.
Yeah. She's,
but they were
that's a sacrifice. I mean, that's a big,
They were Jesus hippies.
Yeah.
My dad had long hair.
So cool.
And ran a coffee shop in Lexington.
Okay.
Cool.
That's awesome. Huh? When you were traveling around with him, was this as an adult or as teenager?
It was mostly after I was married.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So
nice.
In my 20s, I did a lot of that.
So then you would go with him as a Timothy, but also as kind of a right hand. And then what kind of work would you guys do?
So we did a lot of it was just international leaders conferences when I got to travel. I feel like this is kind of boring. Is this boring?
No,
I think it's really interesting.
Yeah,
okay. No, I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So
I don't know what people are thinking about this right now, but
what was cool is it's like leaders from Canada, from the UK, from France, from African countries, and all these pastors coming together to talk about the church, the bigger church.
How's it going?
How's it going? How do we serve each other?
Hanging in there. Yeah.
So a lot of it was that kind of a thing. But then my dad was the Western North America leader, I guess, pastor of pastors sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And so Western Canada, Western US, when churches were going through stuff or leaders were going through stuff, whatever it was, he would go
them and either clean up after the explosion or put people back together, or both.
Walking teams through reconciling and all that kind of stuff.
I think that's
very
super
cool.
Interesting. And I don't think many people today, inside the church or outside the church, recognize that stuff, like, that's a thing. Like, people that there's a role that was played that was like a pastor, two pastors. I think that's important.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
So that was essentially like the first little bit of your career, right? Like your professional life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. The first, like, after I got married, I worked at my dad's church for about 10 years before we moved.
Nice.
So, like, leading worship, overseeing ministries, associate pastor, stuff like that.
Yeah. So then flash forward a little bit to one of the other 4 interesting points that Brent laid out for us.
I don't remember
four
what they
options.
were.
4 options.
I mean,
I hit most of them, I think.
They're interesting as well, but I didn't call them interesting. I called them options.
Okay, just the options. Interesting to be determined. Talk about, I think you mentioned, like, you have your own business. Like, how did that come along? How does that weave into the story? What is it?
Yes, go ahead. And I have follow-up questions.
Perfect.
I was going to ask the questions before you answered.
You could.
Which is not active listening. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I started, while I was pastoring in San Jose, I started doing graphic design for other churches and other businesses. And one of the leaders in our church there helped me start make it a business. And I loved doing it. It was a lot of fun. And so when we moved, I decided to just launch that full time. Had a couple of years where I made like no money. We were living off savings. It was very crazy.
Yeah.
And in fact, I interviewed for a couple of jobs because I kind of was about to give up.
Yeah.
And then they said no. Like, those jobs said no, and I was like baffled.
Yeah.
Not in a prideful way. I was just like, seems like a really good fit. Why are they saying no?
Yeah.
And right after that, I met this guy. Our sons were both in a jiu-jitsu class in this small town in Toccoa. I met this other dad, and he just opened up
with the doors
clients that were, and it just saved our butts. Yeah.
Wow.
So you guys, can you explain the company? Like, so you do web? Yeah.
Yeah. So it started out a lot of like logos and print design, marketing stuff. Now it's primarily websites, but then it's like consulting on brand messaging and brand strategy for companies. And then cool. I kind of do that in the context of building a website usually. But I actually offer a product of like just walking through a process to define the brand message,
like refine,
so you know how to talk about your business more clearly.
That's so cool.
It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Did you study that, or like how has graphic design just been a hobby of yours?
If you're in ministry, you learn everything.
That's kind of true. That's kind of the
answer.
It
is so true.
I feel like I don't know graphic design, but
are you editing videos?
Yes.
Have you? Did you ever do that before?
No.
Okay.
But I mean, like graphic
design.
Have you
ever done a podcast?
Yes.
No, you know.
Yeah, I did.
Wow, wait, what?
My buddy had a podcast.
Here it is.
No, I'm not going to advertise that podcast by any means.
Oh, I forgot you can do that thing. Here's my company logo.
This is the power. This is the power. He can't say no.
So
I have before.
I actually, ironically, I really wanted to be an artist / designer, and my dad talked me out of it and said, "That's not a great career choice or whatever."
Yeah.
And so I got an English degree, which is in my mind kind of equally not Yeah. Anyways, so
but you also, you said you were telling us this past week you love to write and you love copy and messaging, and it's kind of cool how God's like taking you on that arc of ministry life experience.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you how I got into graphic design though. It really is that living in Silicon Valley, we had people, one of the guys in our church worked for Adobe, and he would just give me, this is back before
free Adobe software.
Before it was all online.
Yeah.
Every couple of years you had to
Here's
buy
the CD
for like
CD-ROM,
$2,000 or something. It was super expensive.
Wow.
You had to buy the creative
I remember that
package.
Yeah.
And this guy, Mike, would just like give it to the office as like here, you guys.
That's so cool.
So I was like, I had Photoshop and Illustrator and all this stuff, and I just figured out how to do it.
So fun
for our church.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah,
nice.
So then, you go ahead. You have a question?
Do you have any questions for us? No, I'm kidding. I was going to take it a slightly different direction.
Okay,
and ask
go ahead.
about like other like hobbies, interests. I mean, you're talking about some artistic, creativity things.
Gosh, well, Breenie and I have a sort of couple hobby interest, which is remodeling homes.
Is that a hobby?
The kind of dream. Well, I think so.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of our time in our marriage has been spent together, like working on house, like fixing up stuff, reimagining stuff.
Yeah.
So as far as like spending time in something,
that makes sense.
That's kind of like our couple dream is flipping houses.
Yeah.
It's very expensive in California to try to do that.
It is.
Let alone buy a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know. Other than that,
You play music?
Oh, yes.
That's where Luke was going. Tell us about your music hobbies.
Were you ever first chair trumpet in your high school marching band?
I never did band stuff. The closest I got to that was I went to a Christian high school. So the band ensemble director guy also helped the chapel band, and I was part of the chapel band, and so sometimes we would like collaborate together.
That's so fun.
That's as close as I got to like marching band.
But you play guitar?
Yeah, guitar.
Play piano?
Guitar and bass.
And bass.
I dabble on piano.
Yeah, I do too. I have the same three. I just go ding.
Yep.
Keep it in C. We're all good.
Yeah. So when you were in Georgia, you moved to North Carolina.
Yep.
And in that time, you've always served in the church, in a church.
I have.
And recently, you were kind of on staff as an interim executive pastor. Talk about like what you. Yeah. Because I think like it's really cool to kind of look back and say like even like who your dad was in your life, how you grew all of these tools and skills and learned all these different things. Started your own business, like brand messaging, clarity, leadership, and then the church you were at in North Carolina, like you guys just started serving, and they're like, "Hey, we need." Yeah, you're in.
Yeah, this SLO City is the first church I've ever applied to work at.
Yeah.
So the other contexts were more like we started going to a church, and then I guess I love the local church.
Yeah.
That's like I grew up in it. We always say as a family, like we're a family that we don't just like go to church. We're a family that's like all in with church,
yeah.
Cool.
whether we're working for a church or not.
Yeah.
And so at Lake City, it's interesting. I'm so nervous of saying Lake City instead of SLO City.
Has the name always been Lake City, or did it change recently?
They were Mooresville First Assembly.
Yeah.
First Assembly of God. It's an AG.
Okay.
Not a Arroyo Grande, but Assemblies of God Church.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Mooresville
which
First Assembly.
Means different things in different parts of the country. So
AG does.
Dude, all
or
of
Assemblies
the
of
stuff
God
means different.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. Like there are different like pockets of denominational differences.
Yeah.
That I've learned. And being go ahead.
Sure.
So they were there for that for a long time.
It was like a church that was there for a long since I don't know, I'm gonna get it wrong, but I think since like the 50s or something. And then it was kind of like a dwindling church, and the pastor who's there now got called about 10 or 12 years ago because he was part of the Assemblies of God leadership or whatever. And he had planted a couple of churches and they said, hey, we need you to come to this small church and just help them revive it. And so
10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago was a rename.
Yeah, they renamed it. They moved out of their old little tiny building and moved into did set up and tear down in a gym.
Yep.
And then they built a building, bought land and built a building. Cool. So I got there right when the building was built, basically.
Yeah.
And then I was the creative arts director there for 5 years.
Part-time?
Part-time.
Cool.
And then the last year I was also the executive pastor.
Yeah.
As like an interim thing between guys.
Who's the executor?
Yep. Yeah. It's a great church. Yeah. Plug for Lake City Church. They're awesome.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have a question? You need to ask some questions.
You guys are good at this.
I'll go. Well, thank you.
I like your
my jacket
pullover today.
Thank you.
Is that a pullover or is that a jacket?
It's a cardigan.
I'm just thinking of Dumb and Dumber.
It
very
looks
soft looking.
It looks very
on this 97-degree day.
Well,
you're wearing a fleece.
Cool in the SLO City Church offices.
By the way, I wore a collar today. I don't know if you guys noticed.
You did wear a collar.
This is rare. Yeah.
This was my roommate John. He got this for Christmas and didn't want it.
Just gave it to you.
Yeah, he's
just
like,
left it laying around. Yeah. You're like, hey, I'm going to wear this.
Well, he asked, and I was like,
is John the one with the dog?
John's the one with Willow the dog.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't talked to John much.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. I was going to ask.
That'll be what we put up as the reel.
It's a random clip about a jacket and a dog. I was going to ask, as you've moved to Arroyo Grande and SLO City Church and San Luis Obispo County as a whole, like what are some things that you've noticed, some things that that excites you about living here, that excites you about ministry at the church?
Man, I love it here. I love the vibe. I don't know if it probably is regional, but the California slightly laid back vibe is like a real thing.
Yeah.
When you're away from it for a while and you come back, it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think SLO City embodies that well. Although people do tend to come to church late, like roll in. It's very casual.
Nobody's coming today.
Very casual.
We have no room.
Yeah.
20 minutes later.
Yeah.
20 minutes later.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it.
That's
great. We love being back here.
Because your family's here.
We've got family.
Did you say that earlier? Like Breeny's family's here?
Breeny's family is here. My brother's in San Jose, but Breeny's family is in AG and in Avila.
Yeah.
So now we're able to spend a lot of time with them, which is great.
How would you describe your role here on staff to someone who didn't know what an executive pastor is?
Yeah. I would say the executive pastor's job is to understand the vision of the lead pastor and make sure that that's implemented in all areas of the church at the most basic level. I think that's how I would describe it. But this more like tasks or specific roles, I think, are helping with things like finance and operations and office type stuff, and then helping to lead the team and just give oversight and
awesome.
help them do their jobs better.
You help execute.
Execute.
Executor. Yeah.
Executive.
Yeah.
That's right. That's probably what that means.
It's been really cool to we were Zoom chatting for a long time, but and then it kind of, drug into the summer, just the whole process. And it was really cool. It's just been really cool to get to know you and Breeny and your kids and your story. And I'm excited for you guys to be here. Yeah. And I'm excited for people to get to know you. And maybe with the millions of people who watch this, your inbox will be filled. Yeah. Coffee invites will be just
constant.
But I think I think for the season that our church is in, it's really cool to even look at how God has gifted you and wired you for this season of SLO City, because we're in a very pivotal transitional season where we are a church plant, but we're not a church plant, and we're growing and we're exploring God, what is the vision for the next 5, 10, 15,
By
20?
the way, today is September 8th, the 5-year anniversary.
Well, this is September 5th.
September 5th.
But Sunday is September 8th. Yes.
It says on my calendar 5-year anniversary today.
Why? Why does it say that?
I don't know. Maybe I put it on the wrong date. Yeah. I thought maybe that was like because the days change over the years. That was like the official 5-year, and then we're just celebrating it on Sunday.
No, Sunday is the
I don't know.
Actual
Sunday is the actual day.
Gotcha.
Like,
okay.
but
okay.
yeah. So I think you've probably heard some of the story. We started meeting monthly, starting in February of 2018. So we would meet once a month to worship together, once a month to serve somewhere in the city, and then we'd throw a big party at our house once a month. And then we launched on September 8th, 2019. So that video was posted today that said September 8th, but yeah, it's September 8th, official
I don't know.
day.
My calendar was wrong.
I don't know who put
it. It happens.
But anyways, you were saying it's a transitional time for the church.
Transitional time. And I think like for you to be here in this, like, and even to make sure, like I love how you've come in and to say like, we can't, and quickly you're saying we can't lose what has made SLO City. Yeah. SLO City, the approachability, the relational, the, authenticity. Sometimes when churches or organizations or institutions grow, you kind of lose or you forsake some of the things that make you who you are. And I think we have to fight to be that. And that comes out of who we are. But as the church grows and new people come, like you have to continue to fight to speak clearly. Like, hey, this is a place where everyone's welcome. Nobody's perfect. Yeah. Whether you're buttoned up, tatted up, jacked up, uptight, right? Like all the things that we used to say that we church over a me church, not a pastor-centered church. And I'd say too, like, the vision of the lead pastor as an executive pastor, but really like that's my heart in that is for it to be a collective vision of like, here's where we're going. I know I got to be probably the person vocalizing it the most. Right. But I'm excited that God has gifted. It's cool to see how God has gifted you and uniquely kind of created your story to be here for this time and place season for such a time as this.
I will say part of an interesting thing of being here is that I'm like the old guy now.
You are old.
I haven't been I have not really been part of a church leadership team where I was the old.
You're not old then.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying relatively.
A year older than me.
I'm just saying relatively.
2 years older.
I'm a lot older than you, Brent. I was born in the 70s.
79?
Yeah.
Okay.
That counts.
Well, I have a lot to learn from you.
Well, as we just mentioned, this Sunday is the 5-year anniversary.
Yes.
Which we're very excited about. After 10:45, out on the patio, we'll have tacos, right?
We will.
Tacos. They'll be inflatable for the kids.
Free T-shirt Sunday.
Free T-shirts. And I've seen a sneak peek of the T-shirts.
They are very nice.
Free T-shirt.
Very cool.
Yes.
Can't believe we're giving them away for free.
I know. Yeah. Well, you could take a donation.
Yeah, if you want to give, sure. And working on a testimony video that will be shown. That's really powerful. You'll want to catch that as well.
And some powerful worship. The time of singing.
Yep.
Praying. Using song.
Yep. Scripture
reading.
Yeah. All of it. That'll be great.
Benediction.
Announcements.
So
many things. Wow. All right. But all this to say, it's an exciting Sunday. We hope you can make it. We hope to see you there. And that does it for us.
That does it for us. We'll be seeing you. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Luke.
Alrighty.
Happy birthday.
To who? SLO City.
To SLO
on
City.
Sunday.
All right. See ya.
Maybe today.